What do you want?
I just need a TI launchpad.
Can't you see I'm busy here?
Don't be held hostage by the board order. Go to digikey.com to find thousands of boards in stock, all ready for immediate shipment.
Hey everyone, welcome to the 4th episode of Make Live. My name is Tyler Weingartner, and this is the show where we build projects directly from the pages of Make Magazine. And thank you for joining us today. And this is a show that we are proud to be able to present courtesy of our friends at DigiKey. DigiKey, if you're not familiar with them, is an electronics distributor. They make all the parts. Well, they don't make all the parts, but they stock all the parts that you can purchase or that you can use to build this project today. And we are super excited to have them on board to help us make this show a reality. Now, what is the project that we are building today? It is the Tricolor Twinkle lights. These all go in this mason jar here, and it's just several strands of fairy lights, or strands of LEDs that are powered by an Arduino, and they just fade in and out in a really kind of rhythmic, hypnotic pattern. And we really like this project. It's a much simpler project than we've done in the past few episodes of this. We just wanted to take a step back from things and do a simpler project and maybe explain a little bit more about the process. There isn't any steps that I've done in advance, so you're going to see it all unfold live. And most excitingly, we also have the author of this project, John Wargo, joining us on this. He's joining us via Skype, and there he is. John, thank you for joining us.
Hey, you're welcome. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, it's great to have you here. And just to start off, why did you end up coming up with this project?
So I saw the folks from Pimoroni had a project they published, and basically they threw a lot of hardware at it. They had a Raspberry Pi and a bunch of additional boards, and I thought it was a really cool project, but I wanted to do it with less parts and less overhead. And so I decided to do an Arduino project, and it came together pretty nicely.
Yeah. This wasn't your first Arduino project, was it?
No, I've done many. The first one I published in Make Magazine was a Arduino-powered Pinewood Derby car I did a couple years ago with my son. What did the
Arduino do in that one?
It controlled a series of LEDs on top of the car, and there was an accelerometer on the board that changed the blink patterns based upon the orientation of the car. So when it was sitting still on the ramp, it blinked a certain pattern. And then as the car moved down the track, it changed patterns.
That's great. And so this project, can you talk a little bit about your design process with it? And maybe some of the, is this pretty much the way you intended it from the beginning, or is this a sort of an iteration?
Well, good question, because when I first built it, this is the original version of it. This is an exact duplicate of the Pimoroni project. I just did it with an Arduino instead of a Raspberry Pi. And then as I started working with this, this is an incredible light jar that you can put in like a bathroom when you're having a party, right? Instead of putting a candle there, you put a thing like this. It has nice, simple lights, or it's great for romantic evenings with your wife. But I started thinking about variants of this, and then I knew there were other color LEDs out there, so I put together one that had red LEDs and green LEDs. But the light strands I picked for this were much smaller, and this particular implementation would not have looked as interesting in that big jar. And so my wife suggested using a mason jar, and then that's when this Christmas version came together. And then when I pitched the project to the folks at Make Magazine, they said, that's cool, that's great, but we just published an article just like that. If you can do 3 strands of lights, we'll build something with you. And so what I did was I did a 3-strand red, white, and blue 4th of July version. And the big reason why I did this one was because I didn't like the fact that the original project was hard-coded to basically flip the 2 different LED strands. And so I wanted to build something more dynamic and more expandable. And so I wanted to build it in such a way that I could use an array of pins to define where all the strands were attached. And then you can support an infinite number of light strands based on how many ports you have available on your Arduino. So that's the whole iteration and life cycle of that particular project.
That's great. And I know that one iteration I might like to see with this project, maybe I'll just take this on myself if I build one on my own, is just adding a solar or a solar LED charging panel, so that if you have these like in your garden outside, it can get electricity straight from the sun, and then you don't have to worry about it. Like, how long would you say the batteries last in this?
Oh, it'll go a solid day.
Okay. On what size battery?
I don't remember.
I know that I've got a pretty beefy one with me here. I've got a 1200 milliamp hour battery, so maybe that's.
No, these are 500 milliamp hour, and it'll go a solid day.
Okay, so then I could be looking at maybe a couple of days of charging, but still not having to worry about charging it. Just being able to leave it out in the sun to charge it during the day and have it light up during the night might be really cool.
Well, another variant too, I've done some things around the Halloween with purple and orange and other colors like that. And so you could easily put a strand of neopixels in there and control it the same way. And then you can have actually any colors instead of being tied to the color of the LEDs on the strand.
Yeah. The neopixels do have a more significant power draw though, don't they? Or
yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Yeah, that's what
I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
Without much more to do rather than just dive into this build, let's dive into this build. And of course, if you have any questions for me, if you're out there watching this, or if you have any questions from John, he's going to be staying on with the call. And go ahead and please ask, dump those in the comments, and we will get them answered. And we actually just have our first question. Nathan Carr asks, May the 4th is coming, which is a fun Star Wars holiday. Does this have some uses for that?
Yeah, absolutely. If you pick Star Wars color lights, whatever those happen to be.
Well, there's always red, blue, and green lightsabers are the popular ones.
There you go. Well, then purple too, right? Samuel Jackson had purple.
Oh, that's right. So anyways, let's take a look at the parts that go into this build. The key one here, let me get this out of that bag here that I still have from shipping, is the Adafruit Trinket board. This in particular, this is the Trinket Pro 12 megahertz.
Which is the 3.3 volt one. That's why.
Yeah.
That's why I picked that one.
And so there's that board, and we have another add-on to it, which is the LiPo add-on. This is what lets us power it via battery, and that's actually the part we're going to be building on first. So you have to cut a trace on the board. So there's that guy, and if you can see it, there's this tiny little trace right here. We need to cut that and then solder our power switch to it, so we can turn this off and on. Because otherwise, that's just a completed circuit. As soon as you give it power, it would automatically be powered on. That's not necessarily one. A little bit more control than that. So I'm going to get a breadboard.
Yeah, the one thing that's weird about the board that surprised me is when the power switch only works when it's not charging.
Oh, that's good.
So if you plug the charger, it's going to come on anyways, which I really wish it didn't do that. But.
Oh, yeah. That is not good then. All right, so I'm using this breadboard to kind of hold it steady. I'm actually going to get a little bit of a different camera angle here just so I can more easily see over the camera. That looks good. I'm sorry, it is a tiny board, and what that is going to mean for everybody else is that it's going to be a little bit harder to see.
Yeah, it's smaller than a quarter.
Get myself a chunk of solder here. And one of these days I'm going to learn that I should have the soldering iron, because I'm right-handed, I should have the soldering iron on the right side of the table so I don't have to string the board across everything. Hold that steady a little bit so that while the solder cools, it doesn't tip the board back down. And now the solder will hold the pins in their correct alignment. I probably should have trimmed that solder trace first, but that's okay.
Yeah, the first couple times I did this the hard way, and then I realized I could plug it in a breadboard and save a lot of pain.
Yeah, well, that's a pretty common trick for when you have to do things like soldering headers on there, just so that you can keep it aligned and make sure that everything, because if you've ever tried to do it freehand, then you try and fit it, if you're like soldering pins on an Arduino shield and then try and fit it on the Arduino later, they rarely line up. They almost never do. So there we are. There's our 3 pins for the headers soldered onto the board there. The next thing I'm going to do is cut this solder trace. So just get my multimeter handy, and I'm going to put it into continuity mode. And what that means is that when I touch these 2 leads together, you probably hear it, get that little beep. And here's the 2 solder traces. Right now we can see they're connected, but now we just need to trim it so they are not. I've always found that you need to do it's kind of a bunch of scraping here until you really assuredly break that little copper trace on top of the board. And I think that one's probably done. Let's see.
It doesn't take much, but you want to make sure, right?
Nope, it's still good.
Uh-oh.
That's okay. That's why we test stuff. All right, let's try once more. All right, now that's no longer a good connection. That's exactly what we want. We're going to make another good connection. I'm going to wish I had some helping hands. Maybe I can live without.
I'm too far away to help you there, sorry.
That's all right. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to be adding this power switch. You remember when I told you that I hadn't done anything in advance? I lied. I'm terribly sorry about that, but I did already connect these 2 wires and put shrink tubing on that. But I promise that's the only thing I've done in advance on this build. And then just trim off the insulation on the other side of this. And now we're just going to...
You want to find a happy balance between having the wires as short as possible so they're not easily seen in the jar, but long enough that you can easily solder it in here.
I'm sure if I were making the pure cosmetic build version of this, I would look to do that. But because this is more of a demonstration one, I've gone for the bright yellow cable, and I really am going to want to get a set of helping hands. So let me go over to our cabinet really quickly here and grab a pair of them. Mike Sinisi to the rescue. With get a look at this thing here. This
oh wow, that's serious.
A giant octopus kind of thing. These are my favorite type, just because the long arms make it really kind of wobbly. But we'll make do.
I think there's a smaller set over there if you want me to look at it.
We'll give these a try, but all right. So let's take a look here. We've got to get that in one of the jaws. And then we just need to hold this right in here, and then I think we should be good with this. Yeah, these are just difficult to work with when you're doing things like splicing wires, because because there's so much flex in the arms that you'll join the wires together, but then there'll still be a little bit of tension that when you let it go, release, and then your wires aren't touching anymore. Okay, that is now a soldered connection. Trim these excess leads off a little bit here. And now this guy, this little Li-Poly backpack is now complete. The next thing we need to do is we need to start getting the trinket ready here. And the first thing we need to do with it is, because this is going to sit right on top, we want to protect the backpack board from this USB connector here, because it can help the board ground out. So I'm just going to put a tiny little piece of electrical tape over it just to give it some insulation. And I'm sure I can cut electrical tape better than that. I'm glad you all didn't see that. See what our friend of Make, and I've seen several Facebook groups that I'm on that I like to make stuff, and the CNC router tips. Wes Swain is in there. Hey, Wes. I can't remember if I've ever actually met you in person before, but I'm looking forward to getting to do that the first time if we haven't. So right now, the next thing we need to do is we're going to solder these header pins onto the trinket board here. So let's get another setup clamp down here.
And the first 3 pins.
Do I have this maybe not right?
That's right.
Okay, good.
But it's the first 3 pins, right?
Yes, that's oh, you can't see that, but hold it up to the Skype camera here. Maybe you can see that.
Yep.
Cool. Yep. I'm just going to get this held into place. We're going to solder those 3 pins. And then all we need to do is solder the lights in. That's not held into place. I just use this arm to kind of nudge it into place. And as I said before, if you have any questions for me about this build or for John about this build, please ask in the comments below, and we will do our best to answer them. I will do my best to answer them. If John can't answer them, then you must have asked a really bizarre question. And that was you didn't get to see that, but that was a good example of why you wear safety glasses when you're soldering, even though I am not, because for the first time I've ever done this, I had one of those header trim off and then smacked me right between the eyes.
Nice.
Classy move on my part there. So there is, I don't think I need this anymore, famous last words. This is our completed trinket board here. And now all we need to do is just attach the lights. And then we're going to be done. We have 3 strands of lights. We're going to be attaching them to these 2 ground pins right down here. So we're going to have 2 sharing 1 ground pin. And then we've got pins 11, 10, and 9. And those are the 3 pins we're going to be using to control the lights.
And you can attach them to any of the pins you want. There's an array in the code. You just populate with the pins you used, and then it'll sequentially go through the array. So if you were using a different kind of board and don't have 9, 10, 11 available, use whatever you want.
That's great. All right, so let's take a look at these lights that we're going to be using. So these guys are about as simple as can be. And just separate one of the strands here.
Yeah, it's solid strand wire, so you can't bend them too much.
Yeah. But this is about as simple as you could ever want it. Just, you know, positive lead and a ground lead. And then if you connect them to power, in fact, got a little coin cell battery here. And once I trim these ends off, or trim the insulation off, we can see what they'll look like in the boring version. These normally, you can buy them, and they have a little battery pack that's powered by 2 lithium coin cell batteries. Yeah, normally I'd have 2. I'm only going to use 1 here. But we touch it, and then touch it to the battery, and we see we're lighting up these lights here. All right, and if you can see the lead with the stripe here, that's our positive lead. So I'm going to twist that up here. Apologies for bumping the camera there. Not actually having an earthquake here. And I lied. I am going to be reaching for those helping hands there in a second to help me make these solder connections.
So if you get the ones with the battery pod connected to them and you start to disassemble them, what I did is I disassembled them. I tied a knot in the negative wire, so later on when I'm going to solder them together, that I know which is which. Yeah,
I always just go and look for the stripe. The stripe side. Well, first I determine, because usually the striped side is your positive lead, but not always. So that's why it's good to have a power supply to just test and make sure.
Absolutely. The original project, the one with all the IKEA lights and so on, the wires weren't marked.
Yeah.
But the board inside the battery pack was, and so that's how I picked that methodology.
Nice. Yeah, some methods are a little bit more scientific. Some are a little bit more kludgy.
Yep.
All right, so I'm going to hold these. This is the positive lead of 2 of our wires, and I'm going to grab the board up here.
Negative?
Yeah, negative. That's what I meant to say.
Sorry, I didn't mean to correct you, but...
That's okay. And I actually want to go in through the top here. All right, I'm going to tack that in with a little bit of solder. All right, that's now held in place. And now we're just going to attach the ground wire for... Oh no, we've just lost John. But I'm sure he'll be dialing back in just a moment. I hope so. Maybe if we all beg John on Facebook, he'll come back. There he is. Nope, he disconnected again. Maybe if we beg even harder. There he is.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. I lost my internet connection.
No worries. I just had everybody, tried to get everybody on Facebook to chant "come back" until you were able to connect again.
Nice.
Not sure if anybody participated. I hope so. All right, so that is all of our ground connections made, or the negative leads made, depending on which one. Oh, these are not the best solders, so I think I might flip these over and do a little bit better soldering on the back side. Doing through-hole soldering like this, I normally prefer to do, poke the wire through and do all the soldering on the back, but with wires these tiny and fiddly, sometimes it's easier to get them from the front, and then when you realize you haven't done that good of a job, get them again on the back. All right, and now we just have a few more connections to make, and that's just soldering the wires onto these 3 pins on the Arduino right here, 9, 10, and 11.
And then it matters the order, right? So red goes to 9, white 10, blue 11.
Oh, you are going to make me feel like I've actually tested these and know positively which one is which.
Well, we can go back and just change the array in the code to make it line up to whatever order you have, so that works too.
Yeah. Maybe let's do that, because then we can get a sense of how to modify this code once we're done.
There you go.
All right, so that's one in. This guy, I still need to trim the insulation off the positive lead. I almost had that, and then it just jumped right out of there. Again, apologize for bumping the camera there a couple of times. This camera setup here is good for close-ups, but I also do have to get really close to where I'm working. It sometimes means it gets knocked around a little bit. All right, one more. And once we have this wired up, we can go over to our Arduino IDE and throw the code in there. And get my coffee hands to settle down and actually let me thread this through. Or I could do the responsible thing and actually tin these wires, but who's got time for that? All right, that's in there now. All right, and then I'm just going to flip this over. If for no other reason, then I can trim these off. But yeah, it looks like I have another, not the best solder connections on the back here. So let's, oh, that middle one is actually pretty good. So let's tidy these up, trim them off, and then get this code going.
Yes, I've never soldered from the top like that before. I've always done the bottom.
You solder from the bottom?
I solder from where the wires came through. I've never soldered from where they go in.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't normally do that either. I put the component through, bend the lead over, then flip the board over and do it that way. I don't recommend doing it the way I've been doing it, but because these are, really kind of fiddly little wires, and I think it's probably also good for the camera and for the people watching, that they can see, okay, the wire goes in here, and now you get to see it soldered into place. For people who aren't maybe familiar, have never soldered before, because then you might not get the connection of, okay, here's the wire that just went through, now you flip it over, and which is the one you just plugged in, and which one is being soldered now. So that is our completed board. And
Completed.
Say again?
Completed build.
Completed build.
She's done.
Now she just needs some code. And I will... And this LED strand is trying to grab onto me here. All right, so the next thing we need to do is we need to get this plugged into our computer, this USB cable here, and get our board plugged in here. And I'm going to swipe from John over to our Arduino IDE, and actually, you could still do with some picture-in-picture on this part. And okay, so I'm going to go back to the board view really quick here. The key with this board is that it isn't always ready to accept code like most Arduino and Arduino-like boards. It needs to be in what is this called, the bootloader mode?
Yeah, because it's so small and there's so little RAM, they don't include a bootloader, so you have to push that button to put it in mode. Yeah,
so this is the first time, I guess this, because it doesn't have any code yet, this is fresh out of the package. It's already ready to go in bootloader mode. I haven't had to touch the button yet. But you see that LED is doing its kind of breathing pattern there. That's how you know that it's ready to receive code. At least I think this is how it's going to work. If not, then we'll need to maybe try this.
Well, it'll be in bootloader mode when you first power it up. Okay. And then it'll leave bootloader mode, and then you have to push the button to put it back in.
Okay. That's what I was assuming is going to happen. So let's go back to our IDE here, and we're just going to upload the code exactly as John has written it, and then if he thinks we need to, I think maybe I do need to put it into the bootloader mode because I got the error from, I'm going to say the least helpful person in the Arduino milieu, our not good friend, AVR dude.
Yeah, yep. You got the board type set correctly, right?
Let's double check that. Yeah, there's that. And oh, but it doesn't, it's not seeing it on the port here. That's frustrating. You know, we have our board, we have our correct programmer, and I think now we're just being victim to Mac OS not always being friendly with USB over serial. Try a different USB port, because sometimes that's what makes these computers happy. And no, still not seeing that.
What does it say in that menu? I can't read it.
All it is saying is, all it has in the port menu is, it has serial ports, which is grayed out, and then Bluetooth incoming port.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Perhaps I will.
And you push the program button, right?
What's that?
You push the button on the board?
The button on the board's been pressed. Just pressed it again, and it is still not seeing that as a serial port. I'm going to see if perhaps a reboot or reloading of the Arduino IDE is going to help us out here. Switch back to me really quick because I honestly don't remember what's on my desktop. All right, let's see what we see here. Still not seeing any. I wonder if this is that devil you were mentioning of the maybe a bad board. Let's do a quick test and see see what else. Well, we have another board here, the one I did for my test build a few days ago. That would be this guy right here. And see if that makes our day any better. Still not seeing it. I'm wondering if I might need to do a full reboot of this computer before I can get the code uploaded.
Do you have another USB cable?
Great question. Let's give that a shot. But this is the one I'd used. This is the one I'd used yesterday or 2 days ago when I did this build. So I'm hesitant to believe that the board itself is bad, or the cable is bad.
Yeah, rebooting the box or trying a different cable. Only really two things you can do.
Unfortunately, John, that also means I'm going to. When I
Lose me.
reboot this, I'm going to lose you, so let's reconnect in just a moment.
Okay. Are you there?
I am back.
Awesome.
I don't know if we have our serial port back, but we'll find out in just a moment.
Well, and if not, I can just explain the code, or you can explain the code and see what happens next.
Oh, that's cheating. No, we've got to get this working.
Okay. Could be here all night.
Oh, don't say that. All right. No, it is refusing to see that that serial port.
I've never done this on a Mac, so I don't have any more suggestions.
Well, the good news is I have one more trick to pull up my sleeve, and we have a dedicated PC in our workshop here just for this very purpose. I won't be able to get it connected into our broadcast here because it's a pretty old PC and doesn't really have modern connections like USB ports or things like that. But maybe I can just point the camera at the screen and we could see what's going on that way. A little kludgy, but we can do it. And I think that's where we're headed next. So
we have on the chat, we have someone that says try a different version of the IDE.
I was seeing messages here. It's still boggling me. I did see the nag message of saying, hey, there's an updated version of the IDE, but I am nearly positive that this is how I got this thing working just a moment ago. Ain't no better content than updating software live on the internet. But this is what I get. I was saying earlier, I think this is going to be a really simple build, and this will go really smoothly. And this is what happens. This is why you never say things like that. Someday I'll learn. Someday.
Well, we know it works.
We do know it works. And if I have to, like I mentioned, this one right here is my test build that I did the other day. I'm going to have a really fun time soldering the power switch back onto it, and then I can resolder those wires. But this one should work. In fact, I know it works. It already has the code on it, so we won't be able to do any of the code tweaks that we were talking about earlier. But it will work. I promise.
It looks like I'm watching from the computer screen.
Say again?
There's my face staring at the soldering job from your Macintosh. Oh, good job. That worked. I hate desoldering.
The only one that I hate more than just regular desoldering is desoldering like multiple...
Like a header?
Yeah, like headers, something that has... There I just assume that the entire thing is going to be a loss.
Yeah, me too.
All right, that is the worst solder connection in the world. Because that had basically just tipped into the solder and let the solder cool. But I want to be able to call this build done. Not a particularly fancy build, but a working one.
We need to rename this build Troubleshooting 101.
Oh, they all end up like this. Maybe this is what the series should be called.
It's hard to do with coffee hands, isn't it?
Well, I definitely have it connected. I have a little bit more exposed wire than I'm super happy about. But on the plus side, that is ground, so it's not like ground can short out against another ground wire. So, for the sake of wanting to see this project live and breathe for you all here, I'm going to call that okay and move on. Got my other ground wire here. Got myself in preparation for that same sort of soldering job, I've got a shorter tail on it. I'll tin that really quick.
And if you think you might have to do this, throw some shrink tubing on it before you do it. Then you can just slide it down, shrink it, and cover those open wires, right?
Of course. But if we were doing that kind of preparation, we'd probably just maybe do this right from the start.
Load the code on the board before you solder anything?
Maybe. All right. That also is in there. Good.
Beautiful.
Ground connections are made. Now I've got these loose guys I want to get tinned. Some of them still need to be stripped. And then we're going to be off to the races. All right. We're going to carry on in our rich tradition of soldering these things from the underside of the board. Grab onto it here with the helping hand. Or helping... Do you want to call this a helping tentacle? This is exactly what I was talking about earlier, where you try and get parts to meet, and then they just want to, the tension releases, and then they just want to go whichever way they actually want to go in. So I'm just going to hook it in there, and of course, as soon as I do anything, probably because the other end of this wire wants to be attached to my headphone cable. All right, that was the easy one. I probably should have saved that one for last. Because that was the one I actually got a clear hole desoldered. Let's get this guy tinned. Maybe you guys can't see it. I'm surprised nobody has given me a hard time for that really nasty glob of solder I had on my iron there. Or maybe you guys are just nicer than people on YouTube. Not to say YouTube comments are bad. They're usually pretty good, but unless you're soldering. All right, again, that's not my favorite isolation there. Although maybe I could, that wire's connected. It's not my favorite solder in the world. But while I just plugged in my hot glue gun again in preparation for this, getting ready to package up, and maybe we can just throw a blob of hot glue on there to get some insulation and help keep them in place. All right. And fingers crossed. That is what we need. All right. So we have all of our solder connections made. I'm going to plug it in via USB just to give the board power, and we can see if this is all going to work. Wait a minute. My power switch fell out.
It sure did.
That's why you don't solder stuff like this. That's why you solder things like a professional soldering person and not somebody who's trying to do a live stream in a rush.
All right, so I wonder if anyone here is a gambler. What are the odds that when you power this on, they're in red, white, and blue order?
Okay. Got that reconnected now.
And actually, the switch doesn't matter if you're going to power it via USB.
Oh, it doesn't? Okay. Good to know.
Switch only applies to battery.
And the board still thinks it's in bootloader mode. Oh, no.
Oh, no, it starts that way and then it shuts off.
Okay. So, let's see.
What do you got? We have lights?
We have lights. I'm not sure
Okay.
about order, but
Well, we'll see.
let's see. Get somewhere we can see all three. The blue is still in this bundle here. I think we're blue, white, red. Yeah, we're the other way around.
Okay.
All right.
But
So
it works.
everything works. Everything works. Yay. So the last thing we need to do with this is I'm going to unplug this here from USB and plug in the battery. Actually, the first thing I want to do is hot glue the battery to the lid. Actually, while we're here and we have hot glue, I'm going to do what I was talking about earlier of throw a glob of hot glue on these connections just to little bit of strain relief. Something to kind of hold these in place and give them some insulation from each other. And I'm also going to whack the camera again. Big old gob of hot glue there.
Beautiful.
Set that aside, let it cool down. Get our good friend Dr. Octopus out of the way there. Back here, got our mason jar lid. Well, the ring, there's the lid. Somewhere in here I had my LiPo battery, that's right here. So normally I try and do that at the edges so that if I want to recycle either this mason jar or this LiPo battery for another project, I can easily get it, detach it with a little bit of denatured alcohol, which if you ever have a bunch of hot glue and you need it to let go, that's the trick. It's denatured alcohol. Breaks the bond incredibly effectively. To the point of where sometimes I just consider hot glue to be permanent temporary bond, because it'll definitely hold, but you can get it to let go whenever you want it to. All right. Power switch is already in the on position, and we have lights. Okay. Only last thing to do, I'm going to unfurl this strand of blue lights here. Actually, let's go back to the wider view. This is wages of troubleshooting, but this is an outrageously messy desk I've created for myself here. Well, we've made it through the lull, and actually ended up with a decent number of watchers here.
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for sticking this out and seeing this through with me. Even in times where all I was doing was downloading and installing software on a replacement computer. Oh, I should turn these on. That's what I should do.
Do you want to show the code? We can talk about the code at all?
Yeah, let's go back to that in a second. I don't think we'll have the opportunity to upload it. I think this is all being a little bit too fussy.
Yep.
But yeah, let's take a look at the code in just a moment. In the meantime, that's the Arduino Tricolor Twinkle lights.
Yay.
That makes me happy. Okay. So let's go back to the code here. And let me make this
Yeah, so the important part of it is what you see right there at the top.
And make the font size a little bit bigger. So
That's pretty clear.
Hopefully easy enough to see. So yeah, this is the array you're talking about, the int LED pins here with 9, 10, and 11.
Yep, so for our particular implementation, it should be 11, 10, 9.
Okay.
And then it would work in order. And then Arduino doesn't have Arduino C doesn't have the ability to determine the length of the array. So if you add a 4th, 5th, or 6th strand, you have to change num pins to match the number of strands you have. And then populate the array with the pin numbers in order that you want them to light and twinkle.
Yeah. So
and then there's one other thing too, right below there. There's a value the next couple lines down.
And this is the delay value. How long you want, basically how long you want the fade pattern to last. Right.
So a small number, the lights fade up and down really quickly. A larger number, they'll fade more slowly.
Yeah. Right now, these seem like they're fading on sort of maybe like a 1 second cycle.
Mm-hmm.
And,
yeah.
But if we wanted this to be proper disco lights, we could drop that down to 0 and have some rave lights.
Yeah. There you go.
Cool.
But that's it. All the variables at the top, easy to modify, and all the code's up on GitHub.
Fantastic. Once again, I want to thank everybody for joining us with us. I want to thank John for joining us on this this journey and for writing this project in the first place. This is a really cool little project, and we've had a lot of fun building it. And we hope you have had fun watching us build this. And in the meantime, once again, I'm Tyler Weingartner. This is Make Live. This is a video series that we do live every month. And this is one where we build projects straight out of the pages of Make Magazine and build them live so you can see how they come together and how they work at the very end. And sometimes how they need a little bit of goosing before they end up working. So you get to see the troubleshooting, you get to see everything that goes into it. Once again, we want to thank our sponsor DigiKey for making this entire series possible. They're a wonderful partner to work with us, and they're a great storefront for electronic components. You can buy all the components that went into this build from them, and any components that are going to go into your next project. And of course, we also want to make sure that you stick around, or not stick around for, but keep an eye out for Bay Area Maker Faire. If you're in the Bay Area or anywhere near California, May 19th, 20th, and 21st at the San Mateo Event Center. There's no other event like it pretty much anywhere, I don't think. It's an incredible event, many sites, and we're going to be, and if you aren't in that area, stay tuned to Make Magazine, because we are going to be broadcasting live from all 3 days. So be sure to stick around for that. But I want to thank, again, all of you for joining us and sticking through this build. I want to thank John for writing this project and joining us and helping out and giving commentary. And thank you very much for watching. We'll see you in the next Make Live.
Can we pull these lights down to show the...
Oh wait, Mike just had a fantastic idea. Actually, it's that switch right there. And it's not quite as dark as I would like, but we can see that in this view here. And get a little bit more look at how these things look. But anyhow, once again, thank you very much for watching, and we will catch you next month on Make Live.
Now remember what I told you.
Yeah, don't make eye contact. He takes it as a personal challenge.
Hello? Pat?
Yes?
Can I get a,
He'll take a Raspberry Pi 3.
No pie for you!
Told you. Hey, but I did hear this new deli. I can go pick up the sandwiches.
Don't be held hostage by the board order. Go to digikey.com to find thousands of boards in stock, all ready for immediate shipment.